B-Mills.
We're back.
We're back. Podcasting. Big Hunt, guys.
Episode whatever. Don't even know.
66, I think.
Is it?
I think so. 66? Yeah, I think somebody said after last week, I got a DM that said, hey, 65 was good. Appreciate the info on winter kill. And I think that was 65.
So we know where we're at now.
We know where we're at. We know at least one guy out there like that.
Knows where we're at.
One guy out there got some information out of it that he liked. He took the time. I always appreciate when people take the time to reach out and say, hey, good job.
Yeah.
Do you just appreciate the good jobs, or do you like the negative jobs?
You can send bad ones too. I don't care.
I very much appreciate the bad ones. I've taken a lot of bad feedback, and I am actively working on it.
Yeah, I can take those too. It's not a big deal.
You can't fix what you don't know. So I definitely appreciate when people reach out and let me know.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to hit us with promo and then we'll dive in?
Yeah, definitely hit us with the promo code first. So if you don't know by now, we are still in application season. Surprising, right? When you think about it? We've been talking about it's still application season since December, and now we're in end of April here.
Do we want to talk about anything that might have happened? Any draws came back?
Oh, yeah.
Anybody have any luck in New Mexico?
Did you have any luck in New Mexico, True?
Some people have all the luck, you know?
Yeah.
Some people have it all. No, I have no luck in New Mexico. You have all of it.
You know what sucks about New Mexico is when you get your draw results back, it's not just unsuccessful, it's a red block.
Yeah, it looks really bad.
Like you look at it, you know right out the gate that you sucked. Like that you had no luck at all.
Yeah. Mine was a 100% green across every single app I put on for New Mexico.
Brady had some luck.
Had some luck.
Did you go play roulette that day?
No, I should have. I don't gamble though.
We were in Texas and Brady got his results.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting.
We're up on the hill. He had a little spot of service. Get checks. He's like, oh man, that's some luck. I'm like, what?
Yeah, drew an Oryx tag and drew my rifle mule deer tag. So I'm sitting pretty in New Mexico.
That's what I'm talking about. Some people have all the luck. Not only did he draw, he was also hunting when he found out he drew.
Yeah.
That's as good as it gets.
Cool.
I think of the times I have drawn New Mexico elk tags, it seems like I've often drawn two tags. Like I've drawn an antelope and an elk tag, or a Barbary sheep tag and an elk tag.
I'm kind of mad I didn't dump $9,000 on my credit card and just go all across the board.
You should have.
You should have.
Somebody hit me up that said, I apologize if I don't remember who this was, but they hit me up and said that I think it was a wife that had applied for Rocky Mountain Bighorn. First time she'd ever applied in New Mexico and drew a Rocky tag. Ooh. Yep. Pretty incredible.
That'd be a great day. Yeah. Let me ask you this, Brady. Would that be a fun day to figure out you're out 9,000? Or would that be...
That'd be a fun day.
That would be... It's an interesting thought process to be like, okay.
Yeah.
I have all my tags, but...
Yeah. So I'm happy. It's the first time I ever applied for an Oryx tag and drew one. So
it's awesome.
Some guys get lucky, and I guess this is my time to be lucky.
Love it. Good for you.
Cool animal.
Yeah,
it's like we talked about previously. New Mexico
we talked about
Oryx.
that.
Yeah, I mean, what a neat chance to hunt a really unique animal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but we'll get back into the promo code.
Yeah, sorry, app season.
app season promo code. So yeah, if we want to give you guys some love back, because we still have a lot of apps out there, leftover opportunities. Utah's coming up. We have Oregon, Washington, California, Nevada, Wyoming, Arizona. Mm-hmm. Tons of opportunities left. And then leftover stuff. So use promo code podcast and you sign up. You're going to get 50 points back to the GOHUNT Gear Shop. That's $50 that you can use to buy any sort of gear in the gear shop. And also gives you everything on Insider, draw odds, filtering 2.0, application strategy articles, point tracker, hunt planner. Gives you access to GOHUNT maps. We're getting into the mapping season now. So when you get some tags, now it's time to start doing some e-scouting and then jump in the field, use the GOHUNT maps mobile and crush it out there in the mountains. So
did you already start e-scouting? You're a big e-scouter.
I am a big e-scouter.
As soon as you got back and you saw those green results, were you like diving into maps?
I'm going to be starting.
You big nerd. Yeah. Pretty soon.
Yeah. And I found out, I guess, while I was gone too, I drew Montana. So that was pretty sick.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh.
This guy.
I've got no tags so far. You?
This guy. No, I don't have any tags.
Dude, if Utah doesn't come through for me in Colorado, I might be out there with the Warriors, the weekend Warriors in Colorado, just OTCing
it.
Just getting after it, OTC.
Yeah, we should introduce our little guest we got today.
Yeah, we got a special guest. Very special.
Very special.
How special are you, Lane?
Depends on who you ask, but I think I'm pretty darn special.
Give us an introduction to who you are, Lane. Give us your first name, last name, what you do, how you came to be here. This is our first remote podcast. We're trying this out. So we've got Lane. Lane is remote. Tell us where you're at.
Yeah, thanks, guys. My name is Lane Colyer. I come into you from Missoula, Montana. Work in content and marketing here at GOHUNT. Have been for about a year and a half or so. So we're on here today to talk about New Mexico, the great state of New Mexico, and a hunt that I was able to go on last year. It's coming out as a film on Sunday. I'm pretty darn excited about it.
You've only been with us for a year and a half. Feels like longer, doesn't it?
That was crazy.
Did you think it'd be longer?
Yeah.
It does feel like
He's done
It
such
does
good
feel
work.
like
It
longer.
feels he's changed everything. It feels so good. It feels like he's been here forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, September of 2021 was when I came over to GOHUNT. So yeah, it's been about a year and a half.
Gotcha.
Been through a lot though.
Put him to the ringer right away.
Yeah.
So this podcast we're going to run through. We like to do these. It's kind of a precursor, right, to the GOHUNT Originals that's coming out. So we have a GOHUNT Original dropping this coming Sunday.
Yep.
Is it 9 a.m.?
9 a.m. Yep, Pacific time.
Pacific time. So 9 a.m. Sunday. It's going to be called Close Quarters. And like you said, we got Lane and your brother.
Yep, my twin brother.
Oh,
Evan,
man,
and
we
my
lost
dad
audio.
was there.
And we lost audio.
Lane, we lost audio. Give us a sec.
We suck.
Technical difficulties.
It's like we're either going to have it through the TV, and hopefully this is recording it, or it'll record onto the.
Let's see how good of a job our
Is
producer
it on?
can do right now fixing this in the moment.
No pressure.
Go for it, Lane.
Is it my microphone?
We got you a little bit
Before
there.
I had it set up there, we went through the War Room TV.
Right. Sorry about
Do you think it could be my microphone, or is it something on that end?
I got you there. We can hear you now.
Yeah.
How's that?
Ah, good.
Seems
we
good.
got you now, yeah.
Good.
And we're back.
Yeah, we're back. So, like I said, GOHUNT Original. It's called Close Quarters. Lane, your brother and your dad, right?
Yep.
So your brother and you look quite alike. You knew that, right? There were several times I had to double take.
I've been told.
Are you guys? You guys are paternal twins, or what's the two phrases for that? I can't remember.
No, there's paternal and there's identical. We're definitely on the identical side.
Okay, yeah, you guys are
You'll see in
identical.
the film like standing next to each other, and it's weird when I listen to like the audio from the footage we took. I can't tell if it's me or him, which usually I can, but I can't even tell in the audio. It's so similar.
I just want to know which brother's older. Are you older or is your brother?
No, it's not a funny story. It's not a funny story, actually. I've got him by an hour. And so most twins are
Whoa.
like a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And I've got him by like 56 minutes is the gap. And so it was late enough at night that another, like, if it was like an hour later, we would have been born on separate days, which I think would have been pretty cool. But he came in right before midnight.
That actually would be really cool to be like. I mean, there can't be very many twins out there that are born on separate days. That's wild.
You'd have had your own birthday. You could have celebrated different birthdays. That would have been kind of nice.
I know. Yeah, everything's been same birthday party, same presents, same friends coming over. I've never had my own birthday party.
Well, maybe we should change that.
Yeah, maybe we should.
Have his own birthday party.
We should.
GOHUNT will give you
Yeah,
your
we
own
should.
birthday party.
Okay, now we're talking. I'll come down there. I think Vegas would be the right spot to have my first birthday. I
Yes.
think so.
For sure.
Your 21st, I think, is how that's supposed to work. But up to you. You can have your first 21st.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, let's do it.
So give us a background on where you're from and like hunting with your brother, your family, your dad. I know that you mentioned in the film that you kind of grew up hunting with your dad, but where'd you guys grow up and like what part did hunting play for you growing up?
Yeah. So I'm from Missoula. That's where I live, Missoula, Montana. Born and raised my whole life, and went to college here just like Brady and Lorenzo did. So Trail, we got you 3-1 on this. Bunch of Montana Grizzlies here.
Yes, we do.
So,
Go Grizz.
Go Grizz, baby. So, I mean, really, when it came time to pick schools, I was actually a trader for the first year. I went to Montana State, but came back. Missoula was just my home, and came back. And so, growing up, I played a lot of sports, and it was always like go hunting after football got over. So on the weekends with my dad and my brothers, and so that typically meant Sundays close to home. There's never any hunting out of state. I didn't do any bow hunting until I got older. So it was just a routine for I don't know, 6 or 8 years until I got into college. And when I got into college, that's when it just kind of went from a hobby to more of an obsession, if you will. So being from here, had a lot of spots to go and a lot of people that I knew, and obviously my brother was the one that I hunted with the most, and so we just really started spending a lot more time and getting a lot more serious from where do we want to go, and how do we want to hunt these animals, and what kind of gear do we want to use, and so that was just a time of a lot of learning, and I think interestingly, we both, when it came time to pick a major, we both were looking at the University of Montana going, man, there's a lot of things we could study, but business school doesn't even have class on Fridays. So it's a 3-day weekend every weekend. And so that was awesome. And with how that goes, if Thursday's your last day, then Thursdays kind of become optional too. So we had 4-day weekends every weekend in the fall, and we kind of turned them from a 3-day to a 4-day weekend, but got to do tons and tons of hunting. And really, that's when I really started getting into a lot of archery elk that I had never done before. And as you guys all well know, except for Brady, as soon as you start doing that, you can't stop. It's just too fun and too challenging and too much to learn. So, those were a lot of really, really kind of formidable years that got me into hunting. And like I said, now I just can't stop.
I want to know. So growing up, being a twin, and your dad takes you and your brothers hunting, like, was there a competitiveness between the two of you? And how does your dad manage who gets an opportunity and when? Does he take you both all the time? Does he try to separate you, take you one, then the other? Like, you guys are in a hunting situation, you're all three together. Like, how does that work out? Do you get the shot because you're an hour older?
Frankly, if I was trying to be competitive from a hunting perspective with my brother Evan, I'd be losing every single time. He's just a better hunter. There's no question about it. So I've set that point aside. But we would often go to places where like we could split up a little bit and kind of have our own hunts and still be safe and all that. So. So no. I mean, ultimately, we're out there to spend time together and all that, and we've had a lot of success together. But there was never really any conflict about who gets to shoot what or who gets to go. We just all wanted to be out and finding animals and having a good time.
Gotcha. My oldest brother, he's 12 years older than me, but he'll love this story. Hopefully, he listens. But we were on an elk hunt together, a spike elk hunt in Utah, and we had this spike. He was out in the meadow, probably 300 yards. And another spike comes feeding along. So there's two spikes out in this meadow. It's like 300 yards downhill. So I tell my brother, you take the right one, I'll take the left one. And we'll shoot on the count of 3, right? So I count it down. He swears up and down to this day that I shot on the count of 2. just to get a little bit of competitive advantage there, but he swears I shot on 2, and then he didn't get a shot. But then he killed one later that day. So I was curious as to how competitive you guys were between the two of you. And I still don't think I think I shot on 3, but he swears up and down I shot on 2.
I have no problem admitting I would have shot on 2.
Yeah,
no.
You and your brother have to be competitive.
Absolutely, I would have shot on 2 all day long.
Yeah,
all day long.
Yeah, had to.
Yeah, we had one scenario or one hunt that really I think back to all the time where we had split up. I was with my dad and my brother was over this little hill, and we hear this bang, and he starts whistling and kind of waving me over because there was another buck in this group. So I like jumping over all this deadfall, and I get up there and I didn't even hardly have time to see if he was, a real nice buck or not. So I get up there and I shot it. And so we didn't really know where both of them like died at. So we're kind of hiking around, looking. And I find this buck and I grab it by the antlers, and it's just a super, super nice, big old chocolate rack buck. And he looks at me and he's like, "You did not. Don't even try claiming that one. That was mine." And we went and found mine later, and it was about 4 years younger and half the size. And he's like, "That's yours. This is the one I got." So that was pretty funny. But yeah, we've doubled up a few times. But yeah.
Did you actually shoot the bigger buck in your mind?
No. I don't think so.
You're open
because he was watching it, and he had like this herd or this big group of deer filed out right in front of him. And so, I mean, he took his time to find the one he wanted and shoot it. And then there just happened to be another one there. It was the middle of the rut. And so as soon as I grabbed this one and pulled it up, it was in a bunch of blowdowns. So I pulled the head up above the blowdown. He's like, that one's me. You can go find the smaller one. I'm not sure where it's at.
That's funny. I'm storytelling now, but I remember another story. This guy shot this buck. He told me the buck came over a ridge. He saw this buck come over a ridge. It had been hit, right? And buck goes down and dies. And he's like, assumes that somebody shot it off the backside. So he decides he's going to have some fun with this guy. So he walks down to the buck and puts his sunglasses on the buck. And then he brushes his tracks out as he goes back out. Then he climbs up on the hill and just sits and watch. And about 45 minutes, here comes this guy blood trailing over the ridge, and he blood trails this buck all the way down. He gets to the buck, and here's his buck laying there dead with this dude's sunglasses on. And he said that he just stood there for like 20 minutes, just like, what is going on? How does this buck have a set of sunglasses? And he's glassing all over the ridge, just trying to find out what's going on.
I love shit like that.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Pretty funny. You can use that next time you and your brother go hunting together.
Yeah,
you can
exactly.
Find his buck and put some sunglasses on it.
Yeah, there we go. I like that.
Gotcha. So dive us into this hunt. I mean, it's a New Mexico elk tag, right? Muzzleloader.
Yep.
What was your anticipation going into this hunt? You pretty excited about it, I would assume.
Oh man, yeah. It's just such a different opportunity than I've ever kind of been afforded around here. Almost every year in Montana, everyone's got a pocket full of tags, but it's all general and all kind of is what you make of it. So going to New Mexico, which is obviously known for having more elk, bigger elk, great opportunity. I definitely had standards in my head that everyone kind of puts that pressure on themselves of what you think the hunt could be or should be and all of that. But there was definitely a lot of anticipation and a 17 or 18 hour drive to build it up and think about it in your head. But tried to be, just really tried to be as prepared as I could from a scouting and gear and all. I'm sure we'll get into all that, but I had the whole summer to really try and prepare for it. So I don't know if that's good or bad. It definitely builds a lot of your expectations in your head as the date comes closer.
So I'm curious, was this your first like true out of state hunt?
I had been in Wyoming a couple of weeks before that, doing a backcountry deer hunt. But other than that, I had gone to Idaho once a couple of years ago. So from the perspective of putting a hunt together in a different state and country you're not familiar with, I would still say it wasn't my first time, but it was still a pretty darn new experience to me.
Yeah, because I remember those like first few. It's like very daunting. Like you said, you have such a long drive. Make sure you have all your gear put together. Drive all the way down there from Montana to go to New Mexico. Like,
what was your process of finding a spot to hunt? Like, how did that look to you? And was the terrain similar to what you thought it would be, or how did that work out as you got there and arrived?
Yeah, the terrain was pretty similar. I mean, I spent hours and hours and hours looking at maps and trying to figure out what I thought it would look like and where I thought would hold elk, and where I was an area that had quite an extensive road system. So my first step was just trying to figure that out, where I thought we could navigate, and then obviously where we could get away from hunting pressure. So that was definitely a big part of it. And then the other thing is that last year in the area I was at, got a lot of water. It was a wet kind of late spring and early summer. And so the folks that had hunted there before that I was able to talk to before I went down, everyone was giving me advice on how to hunt them when it's 90 degrees and a severe drought. It's like find these water tanks and sit on them for 5 days. And so when we got in there, we kind of immediately realized there's a bunch of water in here that I think most years that it doesn't happen that way. And so I thought that was good. I didn't want to go sit on a water tank for 5 days. But it definitely made us look at the landscape a little bit differently, and I think it reduced the concentration of elk, made them a little bit more spread out.
It looked thick.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So as I watched that film, and one of the things that pops up to me when I ask the question is, it doesn't seem like no matter how much I prepare for a hunt, and if I've never been to the area, I show up, I have in my mind what I think it's going to look like, what it's going to be like, where I'm going to find an animal, elk, deer, whatever it might be. It always seems like it's not what I thought.
Yeah.
Was it thicker than you thought it would be?
It was, and I knew there would be mature timber, but I had no idea what the undergrowth would look like. And you can see in the film that it's pretty tall, it's pretty wide. There's a lot of it, and so what we learned really quickly was that when you're looking across drainages and you're looking down off it, we had this amazing glassing point that we've spent a lot of time at, and when you're looking down, we could see everything, and we could see a lot of elk moving, and we could see a lot of elk feeding out on these hillsides and stuff. And at one point in the film, we see one that we said, there's just no way that we could go over there and get on that thing because it would look so different when we were on the ground at eye level with this thing. And shit, we'd have to jump on its back almost if we were gonna get it. We would have to be that close.
Looked like you saw a bunch of bulls though, like especially scouting, like a pile of bulls.
Yeah, we did, and so we got there 2.5 days before the season opened to do some scouting, and checked out a few areas. And the first night was like nothing I'd ever seen. So that was like I said, 2.5 days before the season started. And I think the first day, with a half day of scouting, really at our first spot, I think we saw like 19 or 20 bulls and a bunch of cows. So as soon as we got there, we had gone in with really high expectations. And as soon as we got there, we're like, holy cow, this is everything we thought it would be and then some. And they were in spots that, we expected them to be in. So from that perspective, I felt like our plan was pretty solid, and we had enough time to go check out a few other areas and see where we were finding elk and where we were seeing other people and where we thought we were going to be able to get away from people to try and put a hunt together and not have a bunch of people bumping them around.
What was the hunting pressure like? Were you seeing other people?
We saw a lot of other people, yeah. And that first night of scouting, it was actually pretty funny. We saw this. We hiked in and looked back and saw this herd kind of back towards the road. And this guy gets off a four-wheeler kind of right next to him, middle of October, and rips this bugle. So I was looking at this bull through my spotting scope when he bugled, and so there was one bull that clearly had been through this before, and he kind of tucked his head down and didn't do anything, didn't respond. And it was so funny. There was this spike right next to them that he was like, this is my time to shine. And he just rips this as courageous of a bugle as he possibly could. And these guys, I look back at these guys on the four-wheeler, and they were so stoked. But so that was pretty funny. And we were just seeing elk kind of everywhere we looked. But as the days went on and we got closer to the season, there's the typical like guys showing up with campers and side by sides and all that, which is totally fine. But we saw a lot fewer bulls next to the road and heard a lot more engines and a lot more truck doors slamming. And so as we went from being some of the first people there to a lot of people there, that pressure definitely pushed them off the road a little bit. Definitely no more definitely didn't hear any more bugling or anything like that. And so with that in mind, we just thought we were going to have to be strategic about where we went and how many other people we thought would kind of try and replicate that approach. We just knew we had to get off the roads.
Let me ask you this about scouting. So having a really good day of pre-scouting like that, going into a hunt, it's almost a catch-22. Were you able to keep yourself in your in what you had already preconceived as far as like what you were going after, or did your limits already start going up when you had that great day of pre-scouting?
So we saw a lot of bulls that were about the same size. So and I'm not really super picky anyway. So from a size perspective, I didn't go into it thinking, I need to find some huge bull or anything like that. But I definitely thought that after a couple of days of scouting, I definitely was thinking, man, there's just a ton of elk here, and this would be a hunt with a lot of opportunity. So with that in mind, I thought I don't want to take any risky shots. I don't want to, I don't want to be too picky, but I probably don't want to shoot the first bull I see if it's not something I'd be super stoked with. So I tried to manage, this great opportunity with not having expectations that couldn't be met. I was just down there to have a good time and kind of see what happened.
I've been guilty of that in the past, of like having a bar set in my mind and having a phenomenal day of scouting preseason, and my bar immediately changes, and it, expectations can pressure a hunt to a point where it's not as enjoyable as it should have been. And I have definitely been guilty of that in the past. And now I try and do my best to going into the hunt. That's my mindset. Scouting, it's great, gives you information, but I try not to let it affect my my strategy and thought once the hunt actually starts.
I think that's a piece of advice I give a lot of people is, I think one of the biggest factors in going into a hunt is your expectations for it. Yeah. Having decent expectations that are realistic with the type of hunt that you're going into, realistic with your own experience and your own methodology, like what you're good at hunting. And then also, I'm like you, I've had some just bang up scouter days. So one of my expectations the next day just soar through the roof, and then I just
become unrealistic.
Yeah, I just get my ass handed to me for the next 10, 15, 20 days or whatever it is. So yeah, I mean, you can have great scouting days and think you have everything figured out. And that was as I watched the film, that was one thing I kept thinking is you're seeing elk, you're up there, and you know that you're in an area where there's definitely bulls. There has to be a transition from seeing elk to how do I kill an elk? Because those are two different things. And I'm super guilty of sitting up on ridges myself and watching an animal, whether it's a buck or a bull, and thinking, man, I've got this figured, I'm here. But killing them is an entirely different thing. And that was one thing I kept thinking was, it looked like a tough area to try to kill a bull.
Yeah, it really was. And that was the first time I'd ever taken a muzzleloader out, and I'd shot it all summer and was comfortable out to, about 200 yards. But in the grand scheme of how big this country is, getting from 400 to 200 or something like that that's a lot. And so you're right, Trail. There was definitely a lot of times where we were looking at elk and saying this is great. Getting in there and trying to actually get within shooting range with this muzzleloader would be really tough, and it was tough as the film showed.
Did you do anything like you said, your first time really hunting with the muzzleloader? Were you concerned at all with the weather and how that might impact your muzzleloader charges? Were you loaded every single day with powder, or were you just going to load when you put a stock on? How'd you play that out?
No, I kept it loaded from the first day, really, and there was only one day of really significant weather. It rained all day on the second day, so we pretty much packed it in. It was an amount of rain where it's this isn't a reindeer discussion. This is a get in your shelter and tough it out. So most of that day we were in the tent, but other than that, it was pretty nice, and for better or for worse, I wasn't really worried about water getting down the barrel or anything like that.
What would you have done, Brady? I was curious. You brought the question up, and actually, as I watched the film, I was thinking, wonder what Brady would do given a muzzleloader in this kind of weather.
Yeah, I just noticed that I'd probably had a more electrical tape or take like a balloon over the front of the barrel. Mm-hmm. And then maybe partway, I'm always one of those guys that, I like to ensure that my first shot's going to go off with the muzzleloader. And after those days go on, even though it wasn't a very long hunt, but I might have at one point dumped the powder and put fresh stuff in. Just, you're coming down to the wire. You don't know what happened, if it got moisture in it or it got moisture in it from the tent when you're at night and all that stuff and how that could impact it. So it's just like, muzzleloaders are finicky to begin with. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're better nowadays than they've ever have been, especially these inlines. But that thought's always in my head. So I was just kind of curious of if thoughts ever creeped in his head, like, is this thing ever going to go off when I pull the trigger? Or what's going to go on? Yeah,
I've never had a misfire or a hang fire, but I've never really put much thought into it either. Mm-hmm. But it would really chat my ass if I had a buck or a bull within range, especially given the country that you were hunting.
Yeah.
And I got within range and, you what is it? You press the trigger?
Press the trigger.
You press the trigger. I've been working on that. It's hard for me to get over, pull the trigger. I press.
It's ingrained.
Yeah, it's ingrained. Pull the trigger. But I press the trigger and it doesn't go off. That would really.
Yeah.
Knowing Brady, he would have had it saran wrapped in a latex sleeve.
He'd had it rolled up in a dry bag the whole hunt. Just wait. Let me get my gun out real quick.
Just wait.
So take us through. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I had one of those kind of crappy rubber balloon things that tore off about the first 5 minutes of the hunt, and I said, I'm not going to keep putting these on the whole day. 5-day season. So,
look good, hunt good, right?
For better or for worse, I took it off and ran with it.
So take us through. You had a couple of good scouting days. Opening morning shows up. Like, run us through opening day and how it went.
Yeah, so the night before... So we had, like I said, we had gone and scouted a few different areas, and the night before we had okay, we're going. If we don't like any of these other areas, we're parking here. We're going to set up our camp, and we're going to hunt this the next morning. And the night before, we got back there after we went and picked up Mather from the airport, and there was someone there, and they had all their 4-wheelers and stuff. We didn't even figure they would be hunting out of that spot, but they were there, and it was quite a hike in where we wanted to go. So we went to set up at a different area that we were going to have to hike in from a different direction. But we got up there and we were the only people there. So right off the bat, the exact same spot where we had seen elk in our scouting, there was those two first bulls, Lane and Evan, if you will, 2 little bulls fighting on this ridge. So we knew, cool, this is awesome. And we're in here. And then as we kind of kept hiking in, we got into this giant basin. As we kept hiking in, 1 or 2 other ones kind of stepped out and made themselves visible, and that's ultimately where the first stalk happened. Is we got out, we found this rock outcropping that was probably the coolest glassing vantage I've ever been to. It was like 270 degrees of just looking over all this super beautiful elk country. So we posted up there and waited for them to get into a little bit more approachable spot and kind of sent it in there.
What was it like hunting with a camera guy? I'm curious.
Yeah, because this is your first filmed hunt, right?
First filmed hunt. And we've all hunted with Mathers. We know Mather, but what's that like when you pick Mather up from the airport? How you feeling?
It was interesting because like you guys said, I've never done it. This was my first one, and so I'm not an overly outgoing person as is, and so I was trying to not, and I asked Mather for some advice on what to do and what not to do, and he's like, just be yourself, don't speak into the camera a bunch, I'm just kind of there. And he's like, I get a lot more footage than you would think, and so we don't have to go out of our way to make anything special happen. But I was so surprised by how stealthy he is, not only just getting shots while you're sitting around, but when we were on multiple stalks, he's quiet and he was great. So from the perspective of hunting with a cameraman, it didn't really feel, other than the fact that it's in your face once in a while, it didn't really feel that different than being out there with my dad and my brother.
Did you feel pressure to get one killed having a camera guy?
Yeah.
I
definitely did, and he's done so many of these that I was asking him, about about a lot of that stuff, about setting up for the shot, and do I need to check with you? You always, you'll see on films where people say, "Are you on him? Are you on him? Are you on him?" It's like, don't do that. I will be on it. I'm good. But from the perspective of telling a fun hunting story, it's always better when someone gets one in the end. So I did feel a little bit of pressure there, but not much. I tried to not let it get in my head and or affect my judgment or my decision making throughout the hunt.
Yeah. I've said this almost verbatim, the same thing you just said about Mather. And Mather's done a bunch of films for us. He's been with me, and like every time I come back from a hunt with Mather, I always think I've told you before when I got back, I'm like, I don't know what we're going to do because it didn't seem like he filmed shit.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't think he did anything. He was just kind of there, but then he gets the shots that he needs, and you hardly ever even notice that he's filming anything. But in his mind, as he's out there, he's building a film as he goes, and he gets the shots that he needs. And like, I'm like genuinely blown away. Like when I watch back through one of these films, and I did the same thing when I watched this one yesterday. Just, like the B-roll, the close shots, like those captures that make kind of capture the hunt, like the lightning blowing up in the tent. Those kinds of shots that just like kind of captivate you. They propel you right there into the hunt with him. So
yeah, it makes you feel like you're there in the hunt, not just like watching a recap of the hunt.
Yeah.
That's what he's so good at.
Yeah, he captures a lot of details that I would never think to.
Yeah. He's so good at what he does just on the storyline basis too. Like he knows, obviously being hunters, we all know there is plenty of wasted time and plenty of redundancies of we're going to hike up to this hill, we're going to glass. You don't need every single, you don't need video evidence of every single time you climbed up to a hill and started glassing. He knows how to progress the story in a film without like necessarily having to recap it as a talking head. He does an incredible job of that.
And he's a pretty funny guy.
It's fun. He's super fun. Yeah, he's got all the stories, but it's fun because you leave, like we left the hunt thinking, I have all these vivid, awesome memories of time spent with those guys. And then when you get to recap it, you're like, oh man, I forgot that happened, or I forgot that this happened this way or something like that. So that was definitely cool. And like you said, he captures so much more than you think in the moment, and then when you get to relive it, brings back all these details to life that kind of put you right back in that moment, which is really awesome.
Did he sing or make up any tunes for you, like any country tunes in your downtime? That's one of the things Mather loves to do.
He loves it.
Trail and I were just talking about that on our
Mather loves to
hunt.
make up country tunes.
Yeah.
Not that I can remember, but he did tell some funny stories. I'm not sure if I can tell them on the podcast or not. He told some funny ones.
That's funny.
He's good at like.
Yeah, he's also a University of Montana guy. So Trail, we got you 4-1 now.
Man,
we through all the downtime, we figured out we got some mutual connections and mutual friends, which is fun.
I'm gonna have to go back to grad school.
U of M, bud.
Up there, U of M. moved to Missoula for a few years. So day one kind of ends, and then is day two the day that you get rained on pretty hard? Or is that day three?
Yeah, day two, and that was day two, and we saw that coming like a week away in the forecast. It was like 100% rain, 100% lightning, and like storm warnings and all that. So day two, we went a different direction because we had another spot that we wanted to check out that was going to be a little bit closer hike that we could shoot back to camp if it got too nasty. And so we went up into this spot, which was kind of a dud. We didn't see anything and made it back to camp. And by 9:30 in the morning or something, we were on the shelf for the rest of the day, like water dripping through the stove jack in our wall tent and just super bad lightning. We had a tarp down in the wall tent, and it was like getting a pond underneath it. So it was one of those days, which kind of was a bummer because it's such a short season. But there was not really another option, to be honest. And at one point, Mather's sitting there, and he says, "At least we're in a metal tent during a storm." And it was right on top of us, and just broad daylight, just crashing down. And we're like, I don't know enough about lightning to know if we were in danger or not, but the comment was hard to get out of my head for the next 8 hours of lightning.
Yeah. You know it's a real thing when the weatherman goes out on a limb and says 100%.
100. Yeah.
Because like they can always give themselves outs when they say 98%. 90, well, shit, 2% I gave you that might not happen.
He's putting his reputation on the
When
line
they
with
say
that
100%.
100%.
That shit's real.
Mather is a little paranoid. Mather loves to point out all the things that could go wrong,
Beyond paranoid.
which is always funny to me.
Well, yeah, my brother is not a lightning fan either, which we found out in Wyoming a few weeks before. Got caught in a lightning storm up there too, and so he's like, hat over his head, earplugs in, just trying to get the day over with in between meals.
Something that you just pointed out, you said because you lost a day of hunting essentially due to rain, right? You guys are stuck in the tent, and that muzzleloader season's a 5-day season, right?
Yep.
Is that? That seems so short.
It does.
It is
A muzzleloader
so
hunt,
short.
five days.
A 5-day muzzleloader hunt seems pretty short, and I know New Mexico's also got some late season archery hunts, and those are 5 days. Were you ever? How did you feel about 5 days? Were you left wanting? Were you feeling pressure, especially when you lose a day to rain like that?
Yeah, the day of rain was a total bummer, right? And then my experience was that after a day or two, the deck kind of gets of hunting pressure, and we were part of that. We had multiple animal encounters, and so the deck kind of got shuffled anyway. So it left us on, middle of day 3 thinking like, do we need to try something different? Because all the elk we were seeing in here earlier, we're seeing fewer, we're seeing different ones. So it was definitely, it was interesting because we didn't know what was going on in other areas, and we didn't know if there would be new elk moving into the spot we were hunting, if we should be checking out something different. But we were hearing tons and tons of gunshots from people next to the road. Basically.
Did you think it was Utah?
Yeah. So we knew that, that's not, if people want to do that, that's fine with me, but that's not what we were going to go to New Mexico for, was to drive around and see if we could find one on the road. So we tried a different spot on the evening of day 3, which turned out to be a dud. But from when we got done with that rainstorm going into day 3, there was a different sense of kind of urgency, and you start to let those thoughts creep into your head and start to put a little bit of pressure on yourself that we got to find one and start making moves on being a little more aggressive.
Yeah, I think that middle of October is probably one of the hardest times to hunt elk.
Yeah, and then they lock you to 5 days too. It is a tight window.
Early season, you've got. Even early season, like if you have a bow hunt that opens in August, like you've got in Utah, you've got probably a week to 2 weeks where those bulls are mostly in bachelor herds, and they're pretty, they're habituated kind of with that same summer pattern, right? They're hitting typically the same water, same drainage, they're hanging out together, so you can kind of target them. They're a lot more patternable. And then you move into September and you've got the rut, so audibly you can hear them, you can chase them, so you've got that advantage. And then November, December, those bulls have moved into like winter range, and they're definitely tucked away in pockets, and they're pretty patternable.
I think they're very patternable late season.
For the most part, you find those bulls in the same drainages, but like that October time frame, it's interesting. Like you said, I know that you use the term in the film "shuffled the deck," so you were seeing different bulls every day.
Yeah, we saw a lot of different ones, and there was the one that we had multiple encounters. We did have one that we had multiple encounters with. But for the most part, we were not seeing the same ones, which I found interesting because prior to that season starting, there's a gap between the last archery season and this muzzleloader season. So I think there was they had a lot of downtime. They weren't getting any pressure, and I think my assumption is that they had settled in a little bit. And then as soon as people started, they started hearing trucks and 4-wheelers on the roads, definitely some gunshots, definitely a little bit of weather. I think it got them up and moving and made it less predictable than what we had observed in the couple days before the season and then that first day.
Yeah, I think mid-October they're mobile. I think cow-calf herds, they can be a lot more predictable. They'll go to where the feed is, but I think those bulls come October, first couple weeks of October, and maybe even into the tail end of October, I think they're moving a lot still. I think a lot of them are potentially transitioning towards winter range. So they're like in that transitionary period, or they're still kind of expanding and exploring and looking for those second cycle cows. I mean, I know that that year I hunted Colorado mid-October with my kid, there were still bulls bugling. That was actually a really good rut hunt, quote unquote rut hunt. But I think a lot of those bulls were just moving. They were trying to find those second cycle cows that maybe didn't get bred the middle of September.
Yeah, October is like they don't know what they want. They'll pull off a day, they'll check it out a day, they'll pull off a day. Like they have no clue what they want.
Hard
They're
to
just
hunt.
Wandering.
Super nomadic. It seems like that time of year. It's a tough time of year to have a muzzleloader tag, and
That's why I say October's for antelope. That's just
October's for antelope. That's a good saying.
I do like that.
Yeah. The cool thing that I noticed that was a big contrast in New Mexico from like up here in Montana was that early rifle season, which would have been that next weekend up here in Montana, is so hard to hunt elk, or at least for me anyway, because they're hard to figure out. They stay in the timber, or they're not out very long. But the ones that we were seeing in New Mexico, part of it was probably due to the vegetation. We were hunting an area that didn't have as much timber, but they were out longer, feeding longer, moving around a little bit more than I thought they would. So that was pretty cool. That made it a little bit more predictable than maybe I had thought.
Gotcha. Do you? I was curious about New Mexico and elk, so I did a little reading. Just I don't know if you guys are you interested in hearing a little bit.
I'm always interested in trail science and data talk.
So I did a little looking last night. I was just curious. Did you guys? So apparently, New Mexico, Arizona had a species of elk that was extirpated, so extinct, which was the Merriam's elk. Have you ever heard of that?
I have not.
No.
Yeah, so I didn't know. This was news to me last night, which is pretty embarrassing considering I have a biology background. But I just admitted it. But so Merriam's elk, which is like a subspecies of elk, big bodied.
Never heard of this.
Yeah, I know, but true story. So they figure those were extirpated in the late 1800s, extinct, if you will. I found a record here. It said in 1875, a group of 2,000 elk were observed in southern New Mexico. And I don't know if that was a group of 2,000. Can you imagine? That's a lot of elk.
That's a lot of elk.
But presumably those would have been Merriam's. Yeah.
We're talking Merriam's turkeys?
Yeah.
Similar, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then essentially they would have got hunted, became extinct. And this I thought was interesting. It says elk were killed to feed the wave of soldiers, miners, and ranchers who contributed to the occupation of this state after the Civil War. So kind of market hunted out, and then also through overgrazing. So as ranchers moved into that country, they would have overgrazed and just knocked down a lot of feed. So essentially would have eliminated all those elk. So pretty well extirpated completely by 1900. 1903 declared a game animal, so later on. And then in 1910, 1911, they would have taken a private ranch, which was the Bartlett Ranch, introduced 15 Rocky Mountain elk from Yellowstone. And then a game warden whose name was, I'll find it here in a sec, but he essentially kind of took it up on himself, and they released 12 elk into the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. And then by 1912, you had a population of about 60. And then all the way from like 1912 all the way through, it would have been like 1967, early 1970s. They did like these reintroductions, and they just kept kind of filtering elk in, Rocky Mountain elk.
Really?
So it's kind of interesting that you would have had a subspecies, and I would be curious to know if like there's any lingering gene pool of like
I was just going to ask you, did you see if any is there any blood study DNA that it exists?
I couldn't find anything conclusive that said that they did any kind of DNA testing that would have shown that maybe they crossbred.
Yeah.
But everything I could read, a bigger bodied elk, so
Like a Roosevelt?
bigger bodied, heavier antlers, it said, so like potentially more massive.
Yeah.
I did find one thing that said they had a bull that had like 60 some inch beams it was a historical set of sheds that was from a Merriam's. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And then just food for thought, current herd estimate in New Mexico, essentially from 104,000.
Those elk, man. They are
prolific.
They are efficient at breeding and surviving.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a quick synopsis on just kind of elk in New Mexico. And I thought it was interesting as I was watching this film, You guys saw a lot of elk, it looked like. And it's a
we saw a ton.
it's a pretty dang cool story as far as like conservation and restoration of elk. And you know, they're different species, subspecies, if you will, Rocky Mountain versus Merriam's. But man, what a cool opportunity! And you know, kudos to the state of New Mexico for the job they've done in like reintroducing elk. And
They clearly did a good job.
Yeah.
I would have never guessed that they were
down
gone
to nothing.
I mean, that state carries some elk, like incredibly carries some elk.
Yeah, pretty cool. It's habitat wise, I mean, it looked like awesome elk habitat, right?
Yeah, it was, and there was a ton of forage. And one of the cool things is that we were hunting a big burn that I think about 10 years prior. My brother Mitch in college was a wildland firefighter, and so I don't want to give too many details away about where we were, but he was actually on the fire.
Oh, no way!
Fire in the burn that we were hunting. And so yeah, when I was talking to him, he was down there in the late summer, and so he's like, man, there was elk everywhere, and he wasn't giving me, particulars on the actual, area itself, but he was like, it's just super cool. It's a mature forest, a lot of elk that he saw just hiking around fighting fires. So, yeah, the area was great.
Yeah, that's cool, man. That's really cool that he would have fought fire on the same unit, same
It's
area.
awesome. Man, really cool. Yeah, give us your exact pins. What
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was camped just a couple miles away, really, from where we were camped, and so that's cool. That was pretty cool. It was kind of unintended, but kind of a fun story.
Did you, as you went through the hunt and you're closing in, I don't know, do we want to give? Do we want to talk about how it ends?
Let's give it.
Do you want to give it away?
I think we have 2 days left on this story.
We got 2 days left, so
Let's
give us day 4 and day 5.
Yeah, day 4 was an interesting one because I think day 4 was. I was explaining to you guys earlier that we had to take this different route in from where we had originally started, and there was 2 ridges that I will tell you looked very similar to me and very similar in the dark on the map. So we started down the wrong ridge first thing in the morning on day 4 and then had to backtrack a little ways. So we got back into this area, and that was when I had kind of noticed like there's this area feels a little more pressured than it was. There's not a bunch of elk up and moving around and all that. And so we had seen some smaller bulls kind of again in that same spot where we were seeing them most mornings. But that particular day, someone had come up from the bottom, which good for them. That was a long hike. And they had walked right up kind of where we were trying to go. And so that was just tough because we were really hoping that elk would be piling in. The unit that was just over kind of this ridge wasn't really. I don't think there was a season going, so we had observed a lot of elk coming over from that unit, and so that was pretty tough to see. Like late in the day, I think it was late in the day on day 4, if my memory serves me correct, that there was someone stomping right through where we were hoping to see them, and at that point we were feeling a little discouraged, feeling sorry for ourselves because it felt like the opportunity was slipping away a little bit.
When you're seeing people and they're marching up through elk habitat, I mean, did you abandon that area that day and move to a different area, or did you just stay with the plan?
My memory serves me correct. We stayed in a similar spot, but we did move, but we didn't like pull the plug and move somewhere else. So we moved to a spot, I think, where we figured that those guys wouldn't have gone through or wouldn't have disturbed. But we didn't pull the plug and go to a completely different area because that would have required us yanking the wall tent out and kind of really making big changes. And we didn't feel like that was the right move with a day and a half left.
Gotcha. Are you thinking at that point? Are you kind of wrestling with and you made some stalks? Let me go back. So you made some stalks, and you'll see it in the film as you go. They didn't quite work out, the stalks that you made, and I was curious as to. It's not apparent. Do you think you got winded? What were the winds like? in that area? How were you managing that? And then if it wasn't wind, I mean, what exactly happened?
I don't think it was the wind. There's one point on the third day. It was super foggy, and we said we're going to go down. We're going to kind of get on the same level as them, and then we're going to play the wind from there. And if the wind doesn't look good, we'll come back up and wait it out. They were kind of feeding up this draw. So I don't know. I'm not sure if they heard us. I don't think they saw us, but that third day specifically, we had gotten in, and I think this is probably why the film is called Close Quarters, is because they were down in this cut that was so. I was astonished when we got up there how narrow it was. I was like, man, I don't know how we ever would have gotten an elk in here unless we were like in bow range. But it was deep and it was really, really narrow, so they were just tucked right in there. And we were going pretty quiet. We were being careful, and the wind, I think, was in our faces. So I'm not sure if they heard us or what, but there was two separate days, exact same spot. I know one of the elk was the exact same. I think it was the same 3 bulls each time. Really similar scenario where we were kind of creeping through there, and all of a sudden they're kind of making their way out. So, of course, recapping the whole thing, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I probably should have been more patient or a little more careful on where I think they could be and whether that's a realistic spot to try and get one. But the way the country was laid out, there wasn't really any opportunities to kind of set up on a vantage point and have them come at a distance that would be realistic with that muzzleloader. So I'm still kind of replaying it in my head, thinking, man, I'm not exactly. I know what I did. I wouldn't do that again, but I'm not exactly sure how I would approach this differently, a second time.
Gotcha.
Very interesting. So now you're on day 5.
Last day.
Last day.
Rally caps? Did you guys flip the hats inside out? Did you guys shave your head?
I like the rally cap.
What was the rally?
We should have done the rally cap. No, we didn't have any specific superstitions or anything like that. But we got in there a similar spot, and right off the bat, there was a bull coming up out of right where those guys I was mentioning that were parked there before the season, right out from where there's a bull coming right out from where they were camped, basically. That one had actually bugled down below while it was still dark. So we set up, and fortunately for us, we kind of watched him feed up out of this bottom up, and there's a spot in the film where I think he's at like 350 yards, which again, super different between a rifle and a muzzleloader. That's totally out of range for a muzzleloader and a pretty manageable shot with a rifle. So he fed up above this big rock outcropping that, our option was to go up where he went, which was that super thick, super loud, I think it would have been a super low, a low opportunity kind of stock, or we could go below and see if he fed out. And so we took our chance and went below, which I never like. I always feel a little uncomfortable kind of letting them go out of eyesight and then trying to find them in a different spot later. But we took that route. There was a trail going below this big rock outcropping. And so we went down there and got set up and waited for him. And as it turns out, he went somewhere else.
It's always weird how they do that.
It is. Sixth sense, man.
It almost, I think when we were in Texas, I was telling those guys, it's crazy to me how a herd of elk or an elk can be so loud, because Aoudad, we could hear rocks rolling all the time, right? And same thing with elk. There's so many times when those elk are just unassuming. They think they're out there in the woods by themselves. They're cruising around. You hear them rolling rocks, breaking branches.
Sticks like crazy.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden it seems like they become aware that, they're in potential danger, and they just go almost deadly silent, and they can just slip out and move country, and they're just gone.
Wild.
It's always, it never ceases to amaze me that an animal of that size, that much body weight, as big as they are, what do you call them? A yellow school bus?
Yeah, yellow school bus.
Yeah. Yellow school bus.
You love them though. You're the elk guy now. you do love them.
Yeah.
But it's always amazing that a big yellow school bus can just disappear so quickly and easily.
Yeah. And that losing them out of eyesight, Lane, it is a difficult thing, right? With hunting. And then you get into the mindset of like, okay, are you going to be super aggressive to try to turn them back up? Or are you going to be slow and patient? Like what is the right thing to do? And you have no clue. So it literally is just like a flip of the coin. Hope this
Hope it
one is
works.
the right decision, you know? But you have to decide on one.
Yeah.
You being super aggressive and going to turn them up right away when you know the best chance of them still being in that next bowl he went into, or are you going to play the patient game? But last day, that's a tough, like, let's be patient and wait kind of a thing on that last day.
And with a primitive weapon, too.
And with a primitive weapon.
It's like, oof, time to get aggressive.
That's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah, it is. And I find myself, whatever you decide, if it doesn't work out, you always find yourself convinced you should have done the other thing. Like,
of course.
Should have waited him out. Or if you waited out like we did, I'm like, I wonder what would have happened if we would have gone up on that ridge and really tried to go right after him. And so, it's always a game time call. But for this one, it was very similar vegetation up there to where, a lot of these stalks were happening in the film. And so it's just like, man, this would be so loud. This would be, we might be right next to him and not even see him because how tall it is. So for those reasons, we felt like, let's try and be patient. Let's see if he comes out here. He wasn't disturbed in any way when we kind of couldn't see him anymore. So yeah, that's kind of what factored into our decision to go around slowly and see if he fed out.
So was that kind of your last ditch? Was that kind of the last effort of your hunt then?
That was the last, yeah. And so we had seen, it was kind of a noticeable decline from after that thunderstorm, not immediately to zero, but fewer and fewer elk. So we went out to that spot where we had such a good vantage point and said, if there's one in here, this is our best bet at seeing it. I don't think stomping around a brand new area was going to be our best opportunity. So we went in there and I can't remember, but I don't think we saw any more bulls that day. And that was kind of the end of it for us.
Gotcha. What
I was going to say, so like you've had a lot of time now to kind of like look back on this hunt and think about it, which is hard to do. But like what maybe is something you've thought of now that, maybe should have or could have done differently, maybe a certain day or, whatever your thought process may be that, maybe get it done on one of those days that you had, or something you might have regretted doing, like you said, like go down instead of being patient, or like what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the first thing I would have done differently is that, like I said, the two stalks where we really got close to them, they were in these cuts that were narrow and really deep. So really tough spot to try and get in on them when it's, the woods were so still. There's hardly any wind. So I would have probably rethought maybe watching them until they had gotten into a better spot or been a little bit more patient. Not even going down there until maybe they had stopped moving so much. That's one thing. And then the other thing, I think, I probably would have spent a pretty good amount of time with that muzzleloader, getting to know it. And Brady, I know you've got the same one. And the effective range of that gun is definitely farther than my effective range with it, just because I was figuring out the load data. I was figuring out how to shoot it consistently. So that first night there was an encounter where this bull is just at about 250, and I was just like, it's the first day. It's a little long. It's my first filmed hunt. Last thing I want to do is wound one or any of that, So I played it safe and decided to not take that shot. So looking back, I think if I was more proficient with that muzzleloader, that would have been an opportunity to make that a success.
Does that kind of put a sour taste for future muzzleloader hunts right now? Or are you gung-ho on trying to draw another muzzleloader tag and trying to get a little revenge?
I'm pretty into it, honestly. I think I wouldn't call it revenge, but I did a lot of research on muzzleloaders last year, and I love the idea. I think it opens up across the West. Might get a little hate for saying this, but there's some good opportunities in terms of tags that aren't super hard to draw. Good seasons. A lot of states now have muzzleloader tags. I mean, in my home state, we've got that heritage season in December, which is a totally different ball game. So, if anything, I think it made me a lot more interested in hunting with a muzzleloader just because of the opportunity. and I think it's a challenge that, just like bow hunting, it's different. It's just a challenge that you can nerd out on and spend as much time as you want getting good at it and figuring out those opportunities and how elk behave in these different seasons that you might not normally get to hunt.
I don't think that you're alone. And coming back from a hunt or revisiting hunts from your past and feeling like, maybe there was something like you brought up the example of your muzzleloader. You think that muzzleloader is probably effective out to a further range than what you had potentially put the practice and the time into. I know that myself included, I've gone on, bow hunts where I looked at my bow and like my confidence wasn't completely and totally, up to snuff to where I think it should be. And I think it's important. Like what you just said is an important lesson. And it's something I think about quite a bit, is like, it's really easy to get busy with life and, everything that you got going on, and put the preparation into your hunt before you go. This may be not up to par of what you would want to get out of it. And I've always found that like the more I put into the preparation prior to leaving, my confidence goes through the roof. And then, I come back from those with a lot less regrets, if you will, so like, I don't think that you're alone in that feeling. And I've done it a bunch. I just think it's a good lesson. And I'm continually trying to relearn it, but I try to go out there with equipment, whether it's equipment or, I'm notorious for being lackluster on scouting, like as far as like e-scouting, right? I'm really good on the ground, going out and putting boots on the ground and seeing and figuring it out once I get there if I've done that. But like I'm a pretty lackluster e-scouter, if you will. But that's like a good lesson. There's a ton I could glean, and I could put together a whole hell of a lot better hunt plan before I leave, so that I don't run into those issues and those potential regrets. So I think you're not alone for sure. I think it's a good lesson to learn for everybody out there. The more that you can do, I think the better your results. Yep. It's that way with everything, I think. But
I entirely agree. I can remember coming home from hunts, having that like effective range confidence thing, and then coming home and being motivated to like, man, I'm going to fix that. Yep. Like I am going to get proficient at that. My opportunity is going to go through the roof, just getting that little bit better.
Yeah. Yeah, you miss an opportunity, maybe a piece of equipment doesn't perform like you wanted to, but yeah, you come home and you're like, man, I'm going to put all my time and effort into making that the thing that never fails.
Yep.
Yeah. Was there pieces of gear that you took with you that you liked that worked for you? I'm curious, like on gear selection, is there anything that you were like, man, I would use that, or I need to change something?
Definitely a fan of spent a lot of time in the puffy and the rain gear. The one thing that was different for me from a gear perspective this year, is going to be a little bit of a shameless plug, was we were using the all-in system. And so from the perspective of taking video, to each their own on that one. But what I really liked is we're cataloging, we're all able to stand around and kind of assess animals and talk about them and kind of take inventory there. And that was really slick. But other than that, it was pretty standard gear list. And we were, like I said earlier, we were in a wall tent. So
Gotcha.
We were eating like kings every night. That's kind of a rule in my camp is no olives. And other than that, we're going to eat really good. So
wait, no
elk lips. You and Brady will get along
You
great.
said no olives?
Oh, I thought he said no elk lives.
Yeah, no olives. I was going to say, you and Porter would get along great in camp with this whole eating thing until you said no olives. Actually, Porter hates them too. You would get along great.
Sounds like Porter and Lane are going on an elk hunt together.
Sounds like he dislikes olives as well. It's perfect.
Yeah, there we go. So we froze a lot of like chili and taco meat and all that, and had a really cozy setup and cots and a wall tent and burners and all that. So from that perspective, the gear conversation on that's a lot different than a backcountry style hunt. But we had a very nice camp.
Brady was using that all-in system last week. I don't know if everybody knows what all-in is, but give us a rundown on what that is.
Yeah, I've been a big fan of it all this last year during 2022 hunting season, and then going into 2023. It makes digiscoping just that much easier because all you have is that little ring that has like a magnet on it that goes on your spotting scope. So it fits on there really nice and clean, just slips right on there. They're all sized for your specific spotter. The Swaros, loophole, vortex, whatever you might have, you can get that size for it. Then all it really is, I have it right here actually on my phone right now. So it's a case that's specifically designed for your phone, either an iPhone, Samsung, whatever it might be, with another magnet thing on the top of it. So what makes it really slick is those magnets, when they go on there, you just basically snap it right on there and you're digiscoping. It's just stupid simple to explain it. And you can go vertical, you can go horizontal, you can flip it all around. And what's really nice too is you're not putting it at a weird angle. Like the way those magnets work, it's gonna like self-align itself to make it go vertical or to make it go horizontal, and it's just smooth. So you can really just lock down your tension on your pan and your vertical and your spotter, slap this right on there, and your digiscoping is no more like fumbling around trying to make it tight on an adapter or anything like that, and then all of a sudden your spotter moves. It's perfect digiscoping like every single time. And I think it makes bigger sense if you're, those quick situations where I need to see what that animal is really quick before it gets up and over a ridge, or I want to record it for my friend who's going to take a shot so I can see where to hit that animal, or even out at the range. Like I use it all the time shooting my rifle, and I think it just makes it so much quicker. It's like
I don't think it's a shameless plug at all, Lane, and I genuinely don't think that. We, on Porter's deer hunt, his third season deer hunt, we had all of the options, and Porter had the all-in. It is changed the situation of digiscoping for sure. That thing, it's awesome.
Because like you said too, like when you have something that's super easy to use, you're going to catalog more. You're going to get that inventory of the animals you're looking at on a more consistent basis, and then you're going to go back to camp that night and start reviewing it rather than like, oh, what was that animal? Was he one we want to go after? Like, well, now you have it all recorded. You can look back on it, and it's good for like yourself, looking back on good memories, looking back on a fun hunt, checking out cool animals you saw, or even other animals you're not even hunting, like digiscoping an eagle or something like that on top of a ridge. Like that's freaking cool to be able to do that.
Yeah, I love all that shit.
Yeah, it's quick.
One of my favorite parts about that too is looking back and listening to like mine or someone's reactions when you're seeing animals, and how your first impression is and how excited you get to see them, and the things you pick up while you're watching them. I think that's just funny, and it's just digiscoping stuff change. I think it's just changed so much from seeing, where even if it's not assessing an animal or getting their antlers or anything like that, even reviewing your shots or something like that. There's so many interesting use cases that I didn't think of when I first got a digiscoping setup, but I just love it.
I thought you were going to say one of your favorite parts is going back and listening or watching and listening to like the side conversations that are going.
I get so embarrassed I have to turn my volume.
Me too.
I can't listen to myself. I'm like, God, you sound like an idiot. Quit talking like that. But I can't help it. I'm excited in the moment, and it's like that's when all, the guard's down and you just react in the moment, and I have to turn the volume off. I'm like, I can't listen to myself.
Yeah, those side conversations, I'm like, nah, I don't want to hear that. I don't wanna hear that. Probably better not. That's funny. So, I mean, just kind of run out. So you didn't end up ultimately harvesting one, right? I assume it was. Right. You're probably a little bit disappointed, but I was curious as to what you ended up thinking about the hunt as a whole. Like, what kind of memories did you take from it? What did it mean to you?
I mean, everyone who doesn't fill a tag on a hunt says, "Man, it was just so fun to be out there." But really, when I look back, I don't regret the decisions that we made in the moment, or I don't regret where we went or how we planned for it or anything like that. So I just leave it with nothing but fond memories and spending a lot of time out in the field with my family. And it's such a unique place. Like you were reading those elk numbers, there's just to be surrounded by elk like that and have opportunities every day. And we saw some really, really big bulls, especially in the scouting part. So it was just very new. It was very different to me from anything I had ever done. And I just feel super fortunate to have gone and done that.
Yeah. We always talk about it. We don't give a shit if there's a kill or not in any of our films. That's not like, I mean, of course that's the goal, the simplest definition of success, but the success is loving it enough that you want to do it again. Like that is the genuine definition of success, in my opinion. Right. It's like we've always said, we don't give a shit about a kill, no kill. It doesn't matter. And if anybody has not killed, you've either not hunted new places enough or you just haven't hunted enough in general. You know what I mean? Yep. It's like, it's not an uncommon thing. That's why we, there's a good bit of our films that don't have a kill, and we don't really care.
Statistically, most people don't get one.
Yeah, I mean, if you go by statistics, yeah.
I mean, there's some hunts that are, they manage for higher harvest success, and certainly people, those are kind of your premier, and they're often the harder ones to draw. But I mean, for the most part, if you look at muzzleloader statistics across the state of New Mexico or archery statistics, no matter the animal, most people don't get one. The majority of the people that have a permit in their pocket go home without an animal.
Yeah, you were in the majority going home like that. If you do kill, you're a minority within that hunt.
Yeah,
I mean, that's genuine data.
The goal is to get one. Certainly, I understand that, and you probably have a little bit of frustration with not filling a permit. I mean, I know that everybody that goes out on a hunt and they've got a tag and they anticipate it, they've drawn it or got this permit. There's a lot that goes into that, and all the planning and research and everything. I mean, the goal is that, but I mean, it happens. Like that's
as long as you take good sunset and sunrise pictures, then it's all good.
We got those.
Yeah. The sunrise selfies are really the consolation.
Exactly. As long as you take really good ones of those, then you're good.
We'll use that as the thumbnail. Lane, Lane with the sunset selfie.
Yeah, exactly.
You're welcome, Lane.
There we go.
You try to hunt with your family every year? Is that like kind of prereq? I mean, is that something that you really try to do?
Yeah, I mean, around here it's not hard to get a pocket full of tags, right? And so from the perspective of the opportunity to get out, we all live in the same town. We all have tags in the same spot unless someone draws something good. So it's an excuse to go out and do it every weekend. We spend a lot of time between the 6-week archery and the 6-week rifle season. Yeah, we spend tons of time together. And my dad and my grandpa hunted the same spot for like 30 years, and that's where we grew up hunting too. So there's definitely like a component of that where the spot is not as good as it used to be, but we like going there anyway because it's kind of a family thing. We never ever see any other people there. We have a lot of stories, a lot of nice bucks we've shot in there and through the years, and so yeah, it's more than going out and looking for animals. Definitely, it kind of builds that family connection, and now it's just more of a tradition than anything.
Yeah, that's cool. Something
I've noticed, it's my family, we all kind of got our own families and moved out away from home. There's a lot of times, like my own brothers, the ones that still hunt, a lot of times the only time I really see them is if we go on a hunt together. Like I got a brother that lives in Boise. I very rarely see him, but like this last year we went on a deer hunt together. He had an elk tag. But I don't know, it just gives you that opportunity, that thing that kind of holds a little bit of a bond together. You're like, this is the thing that we're going to do and go out and go hunting and, see each other once a year maybe.
It's the purest form of it. It's not a backyard barbecue with TVs and phones and games on and all that shit. It's like the purest form of it.
That was one thing I know last year when I went with him in Idaho. I got to thinking when I got back from that, like I don't remember probably since I was a kid, like since he and I lived under the same roof, that was the longest amount of time in 25 years that we'd actually spent together just talking.
That's crazy.
So, I mean, potentially it wouldn't happen really without the opportunity to get out in the hills and go hunting and just get out of cell phone service. Otherwise, I just find my own little corner and
just go,
and just disappear.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Well, that's cool, man. I liked the film. I thought it was awesome. I thought it was really well put together. I thought the shots, the cinematography, it was awesome. Mather hit a home run.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, do you notice, by the way, how he says tags? You notice that? Mm-hmm. It's a weird, once you get up to Montana, for whatever reason, you know how Minnesota has like a clear accent? Mm-hmm. Montana, they say like TEGS or like bag.
Tags?
Yeah, tags. And like bags are like BEGS, like bags and tags.
Bags and tags?
Yeah. When I went up to Montana, I'm like, what are you guys saying? Like this is so weird.
Bags and tags.
And it's like the only accent Montana has. Did you notice that when you were there?
Well, I think he needs to say it again right now. I want to hear it one more time. Let's hear you say tags.
Tags. How does somebody from Minnesota say it?
Minnesota has like a clear accent through all of their speech. Montana, it's just
a few words.
Yeah, it's just like those quick, like the A's become E's.
Gotcha.
But it's the only thing. You wouldn't notice that they had an accent any other place. Did you notice that when you were at school there? I noticed it immediately.
I don't know, because everyone kept making fun of my Minnesota accent.
You were,
when I had one.
that's a good point. You're from
Then
Minnesota.
I lost it.
They talk like a Southwestern person, but then they just have that little thing. I'm like, what the hell is going on?
Tags and bags.
You know, you've heard that about Missoula before. You know.
I've definitely heard that, and it's funny because I hear Midwest, I hear obviously the South, I hear all these other accents, and I think to myself, man, Montana and the Northwest just has the purest form of the English language out there. Except for we have one flaw on two words. That's it. So,
there you go.
Something I gotta
So
work on.
weird.
I kind of want to hear Brady do a Minnesota accent.
Could you imagine when he
Yeah.
rolled up with
I
a
don't think
Minnesota accent?
I don't even have one anymore. If you want to hear my mom and dad, my brothers talk, like, whew,
Yeah, they have it for
they
sure.
have it thick.
We might have to get your dad and brother on sometime
Yeah,
just so I
we
can listen to
definitely
them.
Yeah, that's a good accent. I appreciate the Minnesota accent. It's a
Minnesota.
good one.
Well, good deal. Did you guys have any other questions? I appreciate you coming on, Lane. It was fun to watch. Like I said, I hope everybody,
Yeah.
tunes in Sunday.
It's a good film. Like I said, I always love the family films.
Me too.
Family dynamic, because like that's what we all grew up doing, is hunting with our families and just enjoying those times together. And like you can see it, like they hunt up together all the time. Something that's everyone can relate to, I think. It's a great film.
Yeah.
Yeah, great film, good story. Appreciate you guys having me on. This was fun.
Any parting words, Lane? What do you got for us?
Oh man, you should have told me this was coming, Trail. I don't know if I do have any parting words. I can't do that at the moment like that.
Just go Grizz.
Go Grizz.
That's the parting words.
Go Grizz. That's it. That's probably going to get them. Out of everything we've talked about, that might get the biggest response of anything, and I hope it does.
Yeah.
Go Grizz, baby.
Well,
Agreed.
I also didn't know that you went to that other college that I will not speak
I know.
their name of.
I did not know that about
I
you
did
as
not
well.
know that he went there for a brief period of time. So I kind of think a little bit less of you.
You're not a purist, man. I'm not going to be as nice to you anymore.
I don't.
You're Benedict
Yeah,
Arnold.
I don't like to make that information public, but I guess I just did. So it's out there for everyone to judge now.
I'll let it slide. You're a nice guy. You're a Grizz for life.
Lane is a nice guy.
He is kind gentleman.
Yep. Very good.
I appreciate it, guys.
Well, thanks, Lane. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Everybody, check out the film. Like I said, dropping Sunday morning at 9 a.m.
Close quarters.
Close quarters.
And hopefully a lot of people have successful
Close
New
quarters.
Mexico applications.
Yeah. Time to dive in.
It's a good, if you do, it's a good film to watch to get you ready for it.
Yep.
Yep.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, thank you. See ya.
See you guys.